Hi, I'm Joe Knob. I'm the author of Brazil for Life, the travel and living guide to Brazil, and I've been exchanging a few emails with some readers of the book, and something that comes up a lot is how to work and support yourself in Brazil. So I wanted to create a video here. It isn't covered so much in the book. It's a fairly broad subject, so I wanted to cover a little bit more of that subject here in this video. Brazil is, like anything, it's not the same as, say, for example, the United States. For example, in Brazil, the highest paid jobs are public sector jobs. They pay quite a bit more than the private sector jobs. And you don't, with whatever kind of work visa or permanent visa you have, you can't get a public sector job until you're Brazilian and you have a passport. And even then, you have to participate in what's called a concurso. It's a public test they give to anytime there's openings for public jobs, and there's quite a few of them because I think it's more than half of the economy. And so you have to take these concursos, but what can happen is for every opening in the public sector there might be 500 people taking that test, and not only would you need to speak Portuguese fluently, but you would have to study and prepare, and so it'd be really hard to get a job in the public sector. So now you're looking at the private sector. Well, the private sector jobs that are going to be good are the ones where, again, in order for you to get a salary job, you're going to need a work visa, and they can only hire you if you can do something that a Brazilian can't do. That's the basic rule. There can be some exceptions. So a salary job is also going to be very hard to come by, and they probably wouldn't want to go through the effort of getting you a work visa. Now, if you have a permanent visa, so you came here and got married and you had a permanent visa, then you can get these jobs and you don't need a work visa because you can already work. But again, the jobs may not pay what you're thinking you might be able to make if you're living here in Brazil. So what happens is the people that survive here, the foreigners that survive here, of course, a lot of them come, they have their own money, they're retired, they've saved a lot of money, and they're retired, and that's how they support themselves. And Brazil is a great place to live if you're in that situation, and you still have to figure out how to get a permanent visa, but you're way ahead of the curve in that situation. Another situation that you can have that will help you a lot is if you work online, whether it's an internet type job like web design or graphic designer or things like that, or if you have a job that just allows you to use Skype and email and things like that, and maybe you have to fly home to your host country a couple of times a year for meetings, but these days you can be a stockbroker, an investment manager, and you can live anywhere in the world. So there's a lot of things that you can do now today, and this is only going to get better without having to actually be physically present in an office. So those are actually great jobs to have because you can keep the income, the money you earn, in the other country in a bank account, and you can have an ATM card that you use here to take that money out, and then you don't report it as income here. It's not taxable. And so, beyond that, then you get here and you're really looking at being a business owner or an entrepreneur. So whether it's something on a smaller scale like teaching English lessons. So then you divide that into two categories. You can have a category of things. If you're here on a student visa, or you're here just illegally, you came on a tourist visa and you didn't leave, then you have to do work that you can get paid for without being a registered employee. So these are going to be things like English lessons, or one guy I'm talking to works in construction. You can work on construction projects and home improvements, and these are cash payment type jobs. Talking to one guy who teaches guitar lessons. He could come here and teach music lessons, English lessons, things like that. So these are things you can do for cash. In the heavily touristed areas that have tourism all year long, you might be able to get a job in a bar or a restaurant, but it may not pay well. People don't tip here. So, but there are places where they look for native English speakers where there's heavy tourism, and then you'd want to get up to speed on Portuguese really fast. For people who have some money and can come here and invest in a business, then real estate is fantastic. The business can be just buying land, holding on to it, and then selling it later. That's essentially part of what I do. But the prices of real estate are just exploding here. And for people who it would take some time to get knowledgeable and understand how the dynamics of the market and what's a good buy and a bad buy and who's a good person, who's a good seller to do business with. You've really got to choose your sellers correctly too. Things don't function the way they do in a place, say, like the United States. So there's an American here who's opened a coffee shop and did it more in the American model than the Brazilian model, and his place is fantastic, and that place has grown. He's been buying out his neighbors and knocking down walls and expanding, and then he's opened a second one elsewhere, but it's a lot of hard work. So you come here, some people want to come here and play and go to the beach and party and live that kind of the Brazilian lifestyle, but if you don't come here with a lot of money, then you've really got to have a strategy or a plan to work. And again, if you have something online, fantastic. You can have an inexpensive lifestyle here. In fact, that's really the best design, is to come here and try to design the least expensive lifestyle as you can, because it's going to be fun. Most of the fun things to do here don't cost anything. Going to the beach, making dinner at home with friends, things like that. It's very inexpensive to have fun here. And so one way to design an inexpensive lifestyle is to learn how to make your own meals. You buy fresh produce at the produce markets. It's very, very, very cheap. You can, if you rent a house or buy a house, you can grow some of your own food too. Your three biggest expenses here are housing, a car, and food. So, for example, if you had enough money to buy a lot and build a small home, or buy a small home, or buy a small apartment, then you don't pay rent. And property tax is almost zero in a lot of places, not in the big cities like Sao Paulo, but if you can avoid any kind of monthly payment on rent or property tax, then that's almost half or more than half of what you're going to spend here. A car, you won't qualify for car financing, and cars here are more expensive than in the United States because there's a lot of taxes involved. But if you can buy a used car, a second-hand car, then you have transportation. You don't have to take a bus or a taxi, depending on where you choose to live. And so you're going to save some money that way. If you live in a big city, you might want to just take metro or a bus or taxis or walk and not have a car. Housing is where you're going to save the most of your money. So it's good to put together some kind of strategy that combines not only how you're going to make money, but on the other side of the income statement is how you're going to spend money and how to keep those costs really low and you can live a very fun, modest lifestyle here. And that's about it for now. I want to keep this under 10 minutes. So good luck to you, and send me an email. You can find me at brazilforlife.com. I am starting another project called inwardrevolutionx.com, which is devoted to my principal work, which is helping people design the lives of their choosing, of their dreams. It's kind of a law of attraction, life coaching site, natural health, fitness type site that is my main concern right now. And so between that and Brazil for Life, that's where you'll find me. Okay? Be well and take care. Goodbye.